And here we are live, everyone. Welcome once again to the spoiler room. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm excited to talk about tonight's movie because this movie has been on my Mark. You got to come up with a way or figure out a way to talk about this film in such a way to where you're not just, hey, let's talk about it. Because this is one of two films in the next 2 weeks here that I want to talk about that I think personally just deserve more discussion. And tonight we are discussing Treasure Planet. Excuse me, in case you didn't know, Walt Disney's Treasure Planet from 2002. And we are doing our Drawing Space month here. So, yeah, I'm very excited. I got a great crew with me. We're suffering from a little bit of Oscar hangover, but that's okay. Thank you for drifting down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and still popping or pouring your favorite drink with us as we talk movie spoilers. And yes, with me tonight, first off, he's with us again, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the one and only Joe Randazzo.
Hello, everyone.
So glad you could join us, Joe. And my right hand man, he keeps coming back for more, like 6 years now almost. It's none other than Ian Simmons. How you doing, Ian?
I I'm jazzed to talk about this movie, Mark, because as we will soon discuss, I hated this movie when I first saw it. I saw it once in the theater and then once again for this show. I am completely turned around on Treasure Planet.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to talk about it. So, we'll give it to Joe because he does it so well. He just finished watching it actually. What's the synopsis for Treasure Planet?
Well, Jim is kind of a ne'er do well kid who, as his mother is literally telling Delbert how she wishes he could be like he was in his youth. You know, bringing home a little pet that he found and uh, begging to keep him. He shows up with the oh man, wow. I use my phone to look up the character
Oh,
names, and now my phone is what I'm using here.
with the
Uh,
police? Or you're talking about with the salamander?
yes, when he shows up with him, because he just crashed his ship and talks about a treasure that is something he used to read about in a book on a treasure on Treasure Planet. And this is basically Treasure Island.
It is.
I say basically, it is exactly Treasure Island. Uh, so Delbert decides, hey, let's go on this adventure. I think partially trying to win Jim's mother over because he clearly has a thing for her, and she at one point when the police bring Jim home, uh, they ask if Delbert's the father. She says, "Ew, no," and he gets very animatedly disappointed. No pun intended. Um, so they decide they are going to. He is going to basically fund this expedition to find this treasure because yeah, the salamander had the map. We get Captain Silver. We get Cap. Oh no, I'm sorry. Silver becomes captain later when we learn he's a pirate. Spoiler.
Captain
Uh,
Amelia.
and Captain Amelia, who is a very proper woman. Um, God, I feel like I'm just giving out brain droppings. Um,
Shout out to George Carlin.
right? Yes. Um, so yeah, it's discovered after the first mate is killed. Shortly after that, Silver's trying to oh, what's the spider's name? Oh my God, the Michael Wincott spider character.
Oh, you're talking about Screw.
Scroob, yes. He uh, he he is the one who actually um, untied the restraints to keep him from falling off.
Did
But
you
they
want
tried.
help?
But he tried. What's that?
Did you want some help, Joe?
Yeah, I do need help because
Okay.
I'm kind of like getting all mixed up here.
No, that's okay. If you want to, yeah, I can take it.
Yes,
I
take it
usually
from
don't,
here
but
because I'm getting a
I'll
little.
take it. Sure. So yeah, Jim Hawkins and the professor. Oh, could you mute yourself, Joe?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Jim Hawkins and the professor go on this expedition for Treasure Planet, which has the loot of 1,000 planets. He's put to work in the galley with the cook Silver, who, as Joe mentioned, we find out later is actually a pirate captain. What's great is that Hawkins first suspects it, but after they spend some time on the ship, they kind of grow a bond with Hawkins not having his father in the picture. Silver inadvertently becomes a father figure to him, and he's like, "Oh, this is different." So something kind of unexpected happened for both of them. But yeah, as they near the planet, Scroop and the rest of the crew really want to just get to pillaging. So Scroop does kill Mr. Arrow by actually cutting his rope, but then blaming Hawkins for not securing the rope. And well, they soon happen upon the planet, and Silver reveals himself that he and the crew are actually pirates. They're here for the treasure. Mutiny ensues. We get Jim Hawkins escaping with the captain and his professor. They land and they find this wonderful robot, voiced by Martin Short, named Ben. And as you imagine, things continue on, and secrets are revealed, and coats are turned twice as Silver Heart grows 3 times that size at one point, to where he has a choice of keeping some treasure or saving Jim Hawkins. And we see how all of this plays out near the end in beautiful, wonderful 2D, 3D, deep canvas animation from, Disney Animation Studios, probably making Don Don
Don
uh,
Bluth.
Don Bluth green with envy, so to speak, because they managed to do some of the things here that Don tried to do in Titan AE and didn't do as well. And yeah, that's Treasure Planet. It's basically, as Joe said, Treasure Island, but in space, and just done. This film. Well, I'll stop first. But Joe, what you've just finished it? Was this your first time?
Yeah, it was my first time seeing it. I really loved it. I thought it. I was really impressed, not just with the animation, just with how well Treasure Island kind of transferred into space. Um, I also really it actually felt real to watch Silver and Jim Hawkins kind of bond, um, to where you forget what you're watching. And I'm like, oh wait, yeah, that's right. This happens exactly like in the novel. Um, there is that instant early on as Jack is running away. Uh, that Silver has the gun trained on him, and he could shoot him in the back, and it's just wonderfully animated. The way you just see his face, just kind of go, no, I don't want to do that. Ultimately, it is a story about how friendship, like real friendship, conquers everything, including chasing your dreams, including ultimate financial freedom. Because this is what I think you said it's the treasure of
A
treasure of
thousand
10,000,
planets.
a
Yeah,
thousand planets.
the
That's
loot
what
of
it
a
was.
thousand planets. Yeah.
Yeah, so I absolutely adored this. I don't know how I never watched it until now.
Mhm. And Ian, go ahead.
It's ironic because 24 years ago when I saw this, I really didn't like it. And I think part of it is because Titan AE had come out the year before.
Mm.
And plot wise, I mean, you could probably say that Titan AE was a ripoff of Treasure Island. Like, hey, let's do Treasure Island in space. But if you look at how closely the plots of these movies map onto each other, it's eerie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because I'd seen Titan AE and I didn't like it, and the next year I went to see Treasure Planet, I'm like, this is the same movie over again, and I was not invested. I'm like, I'm wasting my time. Ironically, I say, because we talked about Titan AE a couple of weeks ago, and I really did not find revisiting that a pleasurable experience. So watching Treasure Planet, I'm like, I don't remember much about this movie except for the Goo Goo Dolls song and that it flopped. And maybe it's because I watched it with my son, who was like, I don't want to watch some space pirate movie. I'm like, let's just give it a shot. He really enjoyed it. And I fell in love with this movie, especially that Goo Goo Dolls song, Jim's theme, which people
Yeah.
might know as I'm Still Here, got a lot of radio play. It was a big hit for that band. But in the centerpiece of this movie, it is the scene where Jim and Silver bond with each other. And I'll put that up there with the opening scene from Up. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just this beautiful little, melodic mini movie that says so much. I mean, there's the scene in that montage where he's watching Silver like take the little sloop down out of the master ship, and he kind of scoots away, and Jim's like, "Oh wait, I guess he's leaving," and that triggers him to flashback to when his father left him and his mother as a little boy. You see him running out the house. He stops and he sees his mom crying in the kitchen. He runs down the space dock and he just misses his dad who left the family behind. And then it cuts back to the present, and then right at that moment Silver like scoots the ship back into view, and he says, "No, come on!" And then Jim plops down. And he teaches him how to sail through the sky in his spaceship, little spaceship. It's a moment that kind of gives you chills. Um, it also reminds me, and we've talked about this phenomenon before, because like no one saw this movie. It didn't do very well at the box office. No one talks about it anymore. I feel like a lot of other filmmakers in the years since have plundered the plot because, and again, maybe this is going back to Treasure Island, a book I have not read, but I'm going to fix that soon. Silver is Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy.
I was just about to make the same comparison. It reminded me of Yandu and Star Lord.
I mean, down to like at the end of Guardians 2, when they're having that kind of flashback, and Star-Lord is realizing that my real father has been this pirate all along, and they show like the montage of him like teaching him how to shoot and all that stuff, and Yandu ultimately sacrifices himself to save his son. I mean, fortunately Silver doesn't die in this movie. He goes off on his own kind of adventures. He leaves was it Morph
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Jem, his little pet. I'm like, that's just, it's so sweet. I mean, it's a very sweet movie. It's also very exciting. It's got one of the all-time great villain deaths where the bad guy doesn't get thrown down a pit. He floats up into the atmosphere, but it's the same kind of effect. Like, there's so much cool stuff going on in this movie. And you touched on it, Mark. Like, you can tell that there's 3D animation incorporated with the 2D animation, but it doesn't stand out.
Mhm.
If you know look for it, then you can see it, but it is seamless and it's so cool. Like the armatures that on Silver, that's all 3D animation, and they can do a lot with it. And they do the shadow puppet thing during that Goo Goo Dolls montage of him like telling stories, kind of like C-3PO in Return of the Jedi. Gorgeous stuff. I've rambled long enough, but I'm this never happens. I'm completely in the opposite direction on Treasure Island now. Or sorry, Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet Island, same thing. Actually, I want to bring this in because this was going to lead to what I was going to talk about. Billy Judd mentions, thanks for joining in, Billy, in the comment and the question, did anyone find Mr. Arrow's death pretty dark? This film, that's the thing. This felt like older school animated films because it didn't, while you had Morph, which was kind of the goofy character in Ben, it didn't like talk down to kids at all. You get Mr. Arrow's death on camera to where Scroop cuts his rope during the very traumatic supernova waves that are going on. And we watch Mr. Arrow sink into a black hole like for a minute, and Scroop's like just yeah. And there's a few other dark moments in here to where you're just like, wow, okay, guys are actually dying, and it's like there's no mystery that they survived a fall or they survived something.
Well, that moment was very reminiscent of Mufasa's death in The Lion King,
Yeah.
where Scar like basically sends him tumbling over into that stampede. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, there's homages all over the place. Oh, including, I don't know if you guys caught this, but in the flashback that kind of opens the movie where Jim is reading that really cool book that's all holograms telling the stories with like the little projectors on each page. Um, but when they do the closing shot of Mom closing the door in his bedroom, do you guys notice the Stitch doll
Mhm.
up in the on his
Mhm.
shelf? Yeah. It's they don't call attention to it. It's literally like a detail in a sea of details, but there's a Stitch doll on his bookshelf.
I love that. I didn't catch it. I wish I would have caught that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a number of Easter eggs and such put in here, but what I just loved, I've loved this movie since I watched it the first time, and it's a shame that it flopped, and it's a shame it came out around the time that Mr. Lasseter took over as CEO, because this was the year he took over as CEO of Disney, and when he took over, I was doing some reading up on it. They were actually going to do a sequel to this movie, but when he came in as CEO, his job was to cut all sequel projects and current projects, basically, and they wanted to kind of start fresh because this was during their what they kind of I think it's described as like Disney's experimentation period or whatever, where they were trying different movies and different things. We're going to talk about it next week. Atlantis, I think, falls into that, but this didn't do well at the box office, and it is a shame because I loved this movie when I first watched it, and watching it again, I adore this. I watch it. It put me in such a good mood watching this movie, and it has dark things happen, but it's just handled so well in here. And apparently, they took 10 years to make this in production. It stayed in production hell forever because I was reading up on it. Where let me see if I can pull it up quick. So, yeah. So the movie was pitched. The movie was pitched by John Musker and Ron Clements several times. First in 1985 during the production of The Black Cauldron, which we talked about earlier, but they ended up being assigned to direct The Great Mouse Detective. So after directing The Little Mermaid, they suggested it, but they ended up directing Aladdin. So after they directed Aladdin, instead of doing this, they put him on Hercules. When they got done with Hercules, they said they'd only do Hercules if they were allowed to make this movie right after. Because these two were trying to get this movie made. And I'm actually glad it came out when it did, because I think if it came out in 85, it wouldn't have been quite as visually cool as it was when it came out.
Yeah, and it's a testament to just sticking to your guns and just it shows in the final product that this is a passion project by people who really wanted to make this movie. I appreciate that a lot. I love when that happens.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, we're a few years out from any kind of like big anniversary for it, but well, no, I guess maybe no. Next year would be 25 years.
Yeah,
this is I think prime for a re-release theatrically, and just I don't know how you convince people to give it another shot, but yeah, I think more people need to see this on a big screen. I know I didn't appreciate it when I first saw it, but I was like 22. I didn't know anything. Yeah, I'm kind of glad it didn't get a sequel because I think it's perfect as a standalone. I think there's just enough hints at the wider universe you're dealing with, because when they get to the treasure planet and they realize they find the method by which the pirate who had accumulated all this wealth had stolen it from all these worlds, they discover this kind of triangular interdimensional or interplanetary portal, and so you get glimpses into all these other like weird worlds and stuff. I suppose a sequel could have been, what happens when, well, sorry, Joe, you just watched this, and I watched it the other night with a little bit of a refresher this afternoon. What happened to the planet itself? Because I know that the self-destruct mechanism was activated.
Yeah, I from what I could tell, it just seemed to just kind of explode.
Okay, because I'm wondering if all of that loot got burned up or dispersed or something. Because I could easily see a scenario where those 1,000 worlds found out that someone had discovered the planet and how to get there, and then they come after it or something, and then Jim gets tangled up in that. But if the money's floating out into space, I don't know if any of it survived.
Well, yeah, the planet does completely explode. It's implied that it goes like all
Yeah, it
foof and
goes
all the
supernova,
treasures
yeah.
lost. Be good, Ian. You would have probably hated the sequel because they had the treatment for the sequel, which would have been Jim Hawkins And Kate, his love interest from the academy, would end up teaming up with Captain Silver to stop, was it Ironbeard from freeing inmates at the Botany Bay prison asteroid. It would have been William Defoe as Ironbeard.
The Botany Bay prison asteroid. Okay, I'm glad this movie flopped.
You see that's the thing, man. I feel like a lot of times a lot of these movies are better off being left alone. And yeah, that sounds aside from Willem Dafoe, which I'm always down for any Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
Yeah, this I'm not glad it flopped, but but
I'm glad it flopped in the cosmic sense. I don't like to see anybody out of a job or have their work not be appreciated, but if it saved us from, years of terrible, probably direct-to-video Treasure Planet sequels.
I was just gonna say that all the Disney animated sequels at this point were all direct to video, like Beauty and the Beast 2, Lion King 2. They were all direct to video movies. So maybe we're better off on that note.
It's also crazy that they didn't get more people out for this because the voice actors they had for this were all really good. I mean, you've got I guess he would be still fairly young Joseph Gordon-Levitt in as Hawkins. You got Emma Thompson as the captain, who I thought was perfect. I thought she was just fantastic in here. The voice acting in here was great. I loved the voice acting in here, and they had some stars behind it. But the thing that stood out for me, and this was the thing I first noted when I watched it, and I want to say I really appreciate. I'm going to preface this by saying I really appreciate Disney and their continuation of strong Disney princess characters. Okay, a lot of they've wonderful characters. I still sing Let It Go. Okay, I love Frozen. I love, I'm gonna say that now. I do enjoy that. But what is interesting is if you look at Treasure Planet, it's one of the few Disney films that is completely speaks to the male adolescent boy. This is male themed stuff. They deal with topics that young teenage boys and that deal with, and it's not something you see occurring often in Disney films. Yes, I know people will say, well, there's Lion King, but still, at this time especially, it's still just one of those things where it's consistent throughout. Hawkins doesn't get a love interest,
right? I mean, even the Lion King. I mean, there was a Simba. I mean, there was a relationship in that movie. I mean, the only relationship, if you want to call it that, in Treasure Planet is Captain Amelia.
Yeah, Amelia.
Yeah, Captain Amelia gets together with oh my gosh, I can't.
Delbert.
I keep wanting to call him David Hyde Pierce. Yes, Amelia and Delbert get together at the end. But I mean, this movie is at heart a bromance. It's a father, surrogate father son story. I mean, we're out a couple months early. But this is a great Father's Day movie. I think, and it's
absolutely.
Yeah, it is. And again, I'm not slighting what Disney's come before. I'm just saying they have fewer films that are directly speaking to the boys in the audience directly and stay consistent throughout talking to them. I mean, Aladdin, Aladdin, he's got a love interest with the princess. I mean, Hawkins' drive is his loss of his father, and he gets a surrogate dad, and he gets that betrayal, and he's not sure how he feels. And you've got the surrogate dad, basically a stepdad, I mean, if you look at the themes in this, which I know are taken from, stepdad father figure. I mean, if they're taken from Treasure Island, but it's just, I think it's a bit unique in some of the themes it covers compared to many of the other Disney approaches to their stories.
Right. And what does Jim want to do with that money, or what does he end up doing? I mean, he gets it from Silver. I think he gets a little bit of that
Hmm.
seed money at the end, and he uses it to go back to his home planet and help his mom rebuild the inn that he had inadvertently destroyed at the beginning of the movie. So he's doing it to help his family out. And then he goes to the academy and kind of gets himself straightened up and all this other stuff. It's just it's kind of it's a wholesome call to adventure film, which we don't. I mean, we didn't get a lot of those back in the early 2000s. We certainly don't have those today. It seems almost out of step or out of time. But again, I think that's another reason that this movie deserves to be re-examined and maybe find another audience.
Yeah, I feel like the reason that a lot of these a lot of these movies weren't as Mark put it, the male call to adventure. I remember growing up, born in 81, so 80s and 90s. I remember in at least in my neighborhood, in my friend group, we always considered Disney movies to be kind of girly. So I think that's why they kind of marketed them more towards the girls. And I think that yeah, this movie had this movie come out 10 years prior, then yeah, I probably would have been watching a hell of a lot more Disney animation at that point. I mean, don't come at me about it. That's just how things were when I was raised. So
No, we're only a few years apart, Joe, and the three of us here are pretty much of the same generation.
yeah, roughly
So,
the same age.
right. So I know it might sound weird to like moderate audiences, like, what do you mean Disney was made for girls? It was the truth. And it's just like you can make a case of like, oh, but girls played with He-Man and Transformers too. I'm like, no, not really.
Well,
I mean, there
they
might have
did.
been
They
there might have been exceptions, but when you're talking about, they came out with the She-Ra line in order to bring little girls into that fold, but it's not like Sally down the block was playing with the slime pit. It just was a reality.
well, I mean they but they were. The thing is, and I guess my point.
Um,
Yeah, I knew girls that were okay. Maybe is just the circles I wrote in, but no, they were, and there were girls, in Star Wars and all that. They were into it. The thing is, the media and the studios, you feel didn't, I think, expect that or see that because no, it wasn't their main target demographic.
right, but here's
Um,
the point, Mark. You might have run in different circles, but societally that wasn't true. And I'll give you some proof. It wasn't until Stranger Things came out that it was cool to be even talk about Dungeons and Dragons or gaming or sci-fi or comic books. When you were in school, you got picked on because you were into that stuff. Unless you're talking about sport, it's that line from Heathers where Winona Ryder is talking to Christian Slater. She's like, Avion has come, mineral waters or Avion's come a long way. And Christian Slater says, yeah, but this is Ohio. If you don't have a brewski in your hand, you might as well be wearing a dress. That was the 80s.
You're right. I love that. I love Heather's so much. But back to here, I mean, and it's not just the story themes and such that you have in here and the voice acting, which is great. The animation, the emotion you get out of Silver, John Silver, who's voiced by Brian Murray, is fantastic. There's little nuances to him, like you said, Ian. Times when you can see him struggling with his emotions of being the badass pirate, but also having that soft spot does truly, even if he doesn't want to admit it, for Jim, and that comes through the animation.
He
Yeah.
even straight up says it. He at one point that if those guys knew, they kill us both.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great kind of parallel to Titan AE. Well, not so much Titan AE, but sorry, going back, I was thinking about this earlier today. 28 years later, The Bone Temple, which came out earlier this year, I thought was a truly great movie. But the cult leader in that film had a fear of his own people finding out that he was a fraud because he knew that if they did, then they would kill him. And that movie played out the way it played out. But we got seeds of that in here. And going back to the animation on Silver, I mean, it's very simply rendered in terms of the color. But man, when his face would sag or his like three sets of jowls would like scrunch or move in a certain way to show a change of emotion. I swear to God, I saw like individual hairs of stubble on that face. It became so real that we were talking about the legend of Star Chaser, the Legend of Orin, and its facial nuances and terrific animation last week. This kind of stands with it. I mean, it probably even supersedes it.
Yeah, all the animation in this movie is absolutely gorgeous. I was floored the entire time, but it's Disney, so you expect it to be amazing. But yeah, the detail that went into Silver, like Ian was just saying, is absolutely phenomenal.
Well, it's Disney, but it's also Disney, getting into the hype of Pixar. I mean, John Lasseter, like I said, becoming CEO of Disney. Pixar is really taking off in 2002 at this point. People look to that at the CGI stuff. Hell, and maybe it will see the light of no. I think it has seen the light of day. Maybe if you dig somewhere on one of my social medias, I have a clip of 1996 Mark reviewing Toy Story on
Wow.
and I opened that review up with saying hand drawn animation is dead. I was 19. I was 20. Okay.
That's something a 19-year-old would say. Yes.
Okay. I was like 19 or 20. Okay. So let's just put it that way. But I opened my review with that I was floored with Toy Story, and I was thinking that, and a lot of people were thinking that's where Disney's going now. It's, and so to see them do this hybrid of all three in such a beautiful way in this film. I mean, the when they do the map for Treasure Planet, it's gorgeous. When it the colors and everything pop because that part is CG with but it blends so well with the 2D that you don't think, oh, that's CGI. That's the thing is you like you were saying earlier, Ian, you're seeing parts in here and you're like, oh, that was created by CGI. Your brain is not distinguishing between the two because one, it looks so good, and two, you're actually into the story.
Well, I mean, going back to Silver, because I think he's the best example of this marriage because he's half 2D and half 3D animated, and it works seamlessly. But he's got these little gears, like a hard drive processor on the side of his head that's constantly, whirring and whizzing about. And I would think that that's 3D because it's so smooth and happening so quickly, but you never know. I mean, that could go either way on that one, but it adds another layer. It's not just like man made of machine parts. It's like everything works and everything has a purpose, and they're showing it off in the best way without just like I mentioned the shadow puppet thing of him, using his armature to create the different shapes. You get a couple of those, like when he's switching weapons, but it's not like the Michael Bay Transformers thing. We're going to take 2 minutes out of the movie to watch some stuff transform into something else, which always bugged me, by the way. Soapbox side note. Why didn't the other Transformers just shoot those Transformers while they were taking the time to transform? Because they're not doing anything else.
It's a valid point. But yeah, so I mean, the Silver character is great, and like I said, Brian Murray plays this. It's one of those voice acting things where you forget you're watching the animated character, and that's the thing. A lot of this story, it's an animated film, and there's parts where you're like, "Oh, this is a great animated film," but there's part you're so into these characters, you're just into it, and his character, especially with his voice acting, it matches so well. You just you forget that no, he's not this big cyborg guy. It's just a person's voice, but it matches so well, and it's acted so well and drawn so well that you're watching this, you forget. And I think that's some of the best animated films. When you forget you're watching an animated film, it's really won a big battle because that shows you're just so into this, you don't care, and you like these characters that much. Even the bad guys. I loved the Scroop character. I loved him.
He was creepy, man. Like that one scene where he's pursuing Jim down that corridor and it goes all red. I mean, that's like something straight out of James Cameron's Aliens. It's effective, especially when he disappears and Jim's like looking around with the pistol and everything. So good.
Wow, I just unmuted and completely forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no.
It'll
Um,
it come
well,
back to you. It'll come back to you.
one thing about the computer animation thing, and I can't believe I haven't thought of this until just now. It was only 2 years, I think, before this that we had the Iron Giant, which was
Mm.
another blend of 2D and 3D. But I think that was mostly constrained to the Iron Giant's transformation sequences when he was becoming the weapon and all that. A lot of
Yeah.
that was still 2D. But another great example of what you're saying, Mark, it doesn't matter if it's animated or not. It's all in the story because I can't watch that movie without crying my eyes out in that Superman moment at the end. Like, damn it! Every time I know it's happening, I'm like, this is gonna be the time I'm gonna be, dry eyed and like, nope, like a little baby.
Just remembered what I was going to say. Thank you, Ian, because it did kind of remind me. Is It's not just that I lost myself and that this is an animated movie. I forgot I was watching an adaptation of Treasure Island anymore because the story was told here so well that I completely forgot the story beats of Treasure Island and didn't realize it until the turn happened. I'm like, that's right. He's obviously Long John Silver, but it's that good. You forget and you think you're watching something completely new.
Yeah, and it's well, Joe, you've read the novel, right?
A long time ago, I read it in like grade school, so it's been
Oh,
30 years plus.
because I'm wondering, like, now that I love Treasure Planet, if I go back and read the book, is it going to be the plot, is it going to be completely predictable or is it different in any way here? And B, will I be able to read that book without just imagining these cartoon characters?
Or imagining Tim Curry and the Muppets.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I never saw Muppet Treasure Island.
Oh, it's
No?
really, really good. You should check it
Yeah.
out. And I just realized, even when I did read it, I think because the book that I had that I got from the library was really thin. I think it was like a kid's version, so I might not have read the complete novel. I might have read like an abridged version that was for children.
Was it, I remember Children's Illustrated Classics. I think when I was a kid.
Were they hardcover?
No, the ones I have
Okay,
were
this one was
softcover, I think.
hardcover. It did have some illustrations, but it was mostly larger print on page, and it was only like, I think, like 110 pages. So I definitely did not read the full novel.
Okay. I'm gonna do that next month.
What also works with this film is it clips along. It's like 97 minutes, I think it is, or 98 minutes. It's not quite 100 minutes.
And
It
even then, I think it's like only like really like 90 because there's a lot of credits at the end. So I
Yeah.
don't think it does clip along.
It clips along. It goes right from we get introduced to Hawkins right away being this guy on this after we get the little flashback of him as a kid, we see him flying this glider. He gets in trouble. It doesn't take long before he gets the chest to where he gets the map to where they go on the crusade, which they meet Silver. I mean, it just bam, 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 bam. This thing just cruises along. So there's not a whole lot of fat in this movie as far as extra. It is a lean movie, and that helps its story because one, it's playing off of either you're familiar with this or you're not familiar with this, but we're getting to the good parts on this and it understands where it needs to go. And even when we get to Treasure Planet and we get Martin Short's Ben character who shows up late, I liked this droid because it's interesting. He's just on the edge of like the annoying robot, but they use him just right, I think, and just the right amount. And he has a purpose. He's not just comedic. He does have a point in the plot near the end. He serves a purpose. He's not just there for comedic relief the whole time.
And I think that's the charm of Martin Short too, because I think Martin Short can read the phone book and be entertaining.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it.
Definitely. I also like when they discover the planet. I mean, it is very Goonies. Like they've got the skeleton of Flint the pirate there, but it's cool because he's very clearly an alien. He's got 6 eye sockets in his skull, and he's kind of hunched over. And I love that he's got the Ben's skull plate, which connects the wiring to give him back his memory, and it's clutched in his bone hand because he didn't want anybody to be able to get this information. And Jim just like breaks his hand open to get the thing out.
He slams it in there and goes, "Oh yeah, the booby trap," which I loved how the booby trap doesn't trip right away either. Though they cross the red line once they find the portal to the inside of the planet where the big vault is, where all the gold is, and all the pirates go through, and they immediately cross the line, but it doesn't trigger it right away. So the audience, it's that Hitchcock thing. The audience knows something bad's going to happen. You don't know when. And then, it's revealed by Ben that, oh yeah, there's a booby trap. And you're like, oh crap. And it takes off from there.
And he, of course, in almost Roger Rabbit, well, it's because he finds the hard drive that goes in the back of his head, but it's almost like the Roger Rabbit line of, this could only happen when it's funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a last moment right before everything triggers and everything starts to blow up that he goes, oh, the booby trap. Boom. Everything starts to go.
Oh, yeah. It just handled so well. And one of the things I had forgotten about in this film was the Captain Amelia character and how much they have her in this story. And I like it, too, because she's not just in here, say, as a gimmick or representation. She has a part, too. That's the thing. This thing is lean. Nearly every character that has any type of lines serves some purpose in the plot of this story. They're not just there for whatever. But I loved her character. I loved how she was drawn, her attitude, everything. Old people falling for each other is cute. So when her, the budding romance between her and the professor, I liked, but I really liked her character.
She's great, and I don't know how old she is supposed to be. You make her sound like she's a senior citizen, but
well, old people compared to Jim Hawkins, because you know what I mean. I'm not saying that her character's old, but I'm saying adults falling for each other is for kids. It's like,
Well, what I like is that she is what I think of when I think of the quote unquote strong female character. She's got a very commanding presence as the captain of this ship, but she gets wounded and she's having to rely on people, and she does have a softer side. She's not a one-note character. She depends on her first mate, Mr. Arrow, and she's quietly devastated when it turns out that he's been taken off the board. But yeah, I mean, we continue to see kind of surprises and layers to her character from the moment she's introduced to the moment that the movie ends. Her character doesn't change, but it's been revealed, contrary to the prejudices we might have based on how she first appears in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think is rare and very hard to do, but they make it look effortless here.
And she also admits towards the end that Jim's unorthodox ways did kind of help. And the thing, excuse me, the thing that I really liked also is that, wow, why am I blanking when I just started saying it? God, what is wrong with me today? My brain's just not braining correctly. What I really love is that, these characters do kind of show that things don't always go your way, but strength is in knowing when to get help, knowing when you need help, and knowing when you can't do something completely on your own. And that's, again, a great lesson to teach anybody growing up. And also, Mark again earlier mentioned that this was more geared towards morals and stuff for boys. What happens with the Delbert character? He is in love with Jim's mom. Jim's mom outwardly rejects him. She doesn't even entertain it. But he starts to fall in love with Amelia, who also shares her feelings for him. So it kind of puts it out there that, look, you're going to get rejected. It's going to happen, but someone else will come along and you will be better for it. And I love that as a message.
And also he's his character doesn't get bitter or resentful. You can tell he's had a crush on Jim's mom for a while, and he doesn't hold that against Jim. There's nothing, there's none of that. That could have gone, another way of them going on this adventure together. But you're right, Joe. I mean, it's. I'm trying to think of another movie where I've seen this particular dynamic play out, and I can't.
Well, not only that, but let's look at the way they set up the Amelia and Delbert relationship until we get to like the end. It's not alluded of exactly what's going to happen with those two. We know they're kind of like each other, but nothing really alludes till we get to the coda at the end, the happy moment at the end.
Well, there is that one moment where when they go back to Ben's place and Ben calls them a couple, and Delbert says we're not a couple. But then when you look at Amelia, she's like, you kind of get the feeling that she does kind of have feelings for him. So I think that's a little bit of the foreshadowing for it. I don't remember much else of it though.
Well, it's in that same scene that I think as one of the great laughs, and it's a pop culture joke that's handled the right way instead of just being a callback. It's when Delbert says, "Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a doctor. I mean, I'm a doctor, but I've got a PhD, which basically means I sit around and like talk about stuff, but I'm not like that kind of doctor." It's a perfect David Hyde Pierce kind of, verbal regression. It's wonderful. It's not just like, "Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor. I'm not a doctor," whatever. It plays into this whole bit and tells about his character in the situation. Just so smart.
It is, and this film is smart overall. I mean, it handles things in the way you need them and want them to where kids and adults can enjoy it both, because it's not necessarily talking down to kids, but it's also not so saccharine that the parents are just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go over here. You kids enjoy the sweets, you know. It's something that it deals with themes and subjects that you've got characters that everybody can enjoy. And yeah, the young kids can enjoy Morph even, for a sidekick character, he takes place of, say, a parrot for your pirate. He's kind of the parrot, space version of the parrot buddy for the captain, Silver. He's adorable. He's not even overly he's used in just the right ways and the right amounts to where he shows up and he's there, but he isn't always the gimmick. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because more for those who haven't seen it and yet have somehow listened to us talk for almost an hour, he's a little pink blob with a face, and he's a shape changer, so he can change into anything. And he's also, one of the many bits of comedic relief that doesn't overstay his welcome in this movie. But Joe, you mentioned Roger Rabbit. There's a Roger Rabbit-esque bit here where Jim is like, okay, I think they're on the planet, and then the map shows up as this like bronze sphere, like the Hellraiser puzzle box, but as a sphere. And then it turns out that the sphere is Morph. And Morph like reveals himself to be the pink thing. And then Jim's like, okay, Morph, so where'd you hide the map? And he changes into a diagram of the ball and a rope that's still on board the ship. He's like, you left it on the ship that we just escaped from? He's like, yeah. So good.
Oh yeah, it is one of those movies that I think it got underappreciated quite a bit here, because it's far better than what its box office might allude to. And let's just say we talked about how it did give some homages and how some movies have borrowed from this plot. You know what movie came out a year later, right?
Was that Lilo and Stitch?
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, right. Okay.
Also a Disney movie too.
So. Also a Disney ripped it off. And there, if you watch it, like some of the crew, the way you have some of Silver's crew guys, you're just like, now I know they're just basic pirates, but still, it's very familiar. If you watch this in Curse of the Black Pearl, you're gonna go like, really?
And some of the creatures at the end of the movie kind of looked like a lot of the creatures from what's it called, Mr. Toad's
Oh
Mr.
yeah,
Toad's Wrong
yeah.
Ride. So a
Hmm.
lot of them looked like that. So there's a lot of constant callbacks to other Disney movies too,
Hmm.
which as someone who's older and watched a lot of these movies growing up, I enjoy that.
Well, I mean, and I wonder if they were seeding Pirates of the Caribbean in this movie because when they go back up to the ship, I can't remember if it might have been Morph or it could have been Jim was whistling. It's a yo ho 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 a pirate's life for me.
Yes, yeah, he was. I mean, and again, I know it's pirate themed and Pirates of the Caribbean, so there's going to be similarities, but it's just hilarious that these two films are a year apart. They're both from Disney, and if you watch this one and then you watch Pirates, they'd make they'd make a good double feature in a way, actually.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and yeah, and this is why I'm so happy. I know people say, Mark, you programmed this, you could just watch it wherever. I wanted to kind of have a reason to talk about this film because it is one of those lost Disney film. I call lost Disney films in that you don't see much merchandise about it. You don't see many references to it. You don't, they came out some video games at the same time the movie came out that like Disney would do, but you really don't see a whole lot in Disney World from Treasure Planet. And I think this would be a wonderful ride. They could stick you on the ship. You be in a little sloop with like five other people, and you go through the different. I think it would make a great ride, personally.
Oh yeah. I mean, and the other thing, like, I'm gonna go and look this up on eBay because they're probably dirt cheap if they exist. But I want a silver action figure like with all the gears and stuff turning around. I mean, even if it's just like a cheap little thing I could put up on display back there, because it's the designs of all these characters in this movie. Even Jim, the boring human teenager, he's got a very particular look. He does have that weird little ponytail thing that like the Padawan ponytail, but yeah, it's visually this thing is great, and I think Disney missed a big opportunity. I don't know why didn't they put a lot behind this in terms of marketing? Because usually they're pretty on the ball with that stuff, right? They have the campaigns and the toys and stuff ready to go for when release date happens. But I don't remember there being, to your point, Mark, a big push for this thing.
I'm not sure why.
It,
Um,
I mean, it could have just been the marketing. I mean, I would have been, this came out 2002. I would have been 21. So it might just be that I didn't see it because I was kind of aged out of watching Disney movies. But I can't imagine they wouldn't have marketed it. I think it might have just been it didn't do well, and then they just didn't continue marketing it.
Mm, yeah.
and again, it's one of those where it came out, you were having a transition of leadership in
Yeah, and
Disney
sometimes
to
things get lost in the shuffle there. Yeah.
and we've talked about it with a couple of these other films that over the years, talking here on how some of these films that are good that people didn't really talk about, and you're like, why? And then you find out the behind the scenes to where, oh yeah, well, this studio was being bought by this, or this studio head was moving into a position and they were wiping out, and it's one of those things where sometimes that does just hurt a film. Um, at no fault of the film, it's just the real world stuff possibly affecting how it's managed, unfortunately. And this is one of those, I think.
Well, gang, I just looked it up on eBay. There's a McDonald's Happy Meal toy of Captain Silver. It's loose and it's $10 or best offer.
There you go. You can get yourself a Captain Silver. I mean, there must have been also something besides just a Happy Meal toy, though.
Yeah, they've got some things on cards. It looks like, but they're actually really expensive. My goodness, I think it's probably because they're out of print because nobody cared about them. So
Yeah, so a lot of them got melted down because they weren't selling and the plastic got reused. So that's probably it. I find that a lot because like stuff that isn't as popular later on because there aren't as many, suddenly it becomes a collector's item because hey, I mean that's what makes something a collector's item is the rarity.
yeah. Oh,
The other thing too that it just made me realize, while we do get the montage, I just looked up a note quick. This is like the 12th movie of Disney to not be a musical where the performers bust into musical numbers.
yeah.
You get a montage, but you don't actually get anybody singing in this.
Well, and that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up because it's something, another contrast to Titan AE, which had, as we discussed on that show, a whole bunch of songs that sounded like they were of the era, but they were like generic bands that no one had ever heard of. Whereas this one has one song in the middle of the movie by the Goo Goo Dolls, and you only need that. You don't need anything else.
Yeah, I made a note of that too. I'm like, oh look, you know, pop song montage, just like Titan AE, but done better
Yep.
here because it served a better purpose. And that the score by James Newton Howard is fantastic in this. I've listened to that music many times. I love the score to Treasure Planet.
Have they put
It's a
that on a fancy vinyl? Do you know?
I haven't seen it on vinyl, but it was on CD and MP3 as well. But it's a just a fun adventure soundtrack that is so just that rousing, fun music, and I've listened to the soundtrack many times. And the music fits so well with it, and it is. It's just, and maybe I hate to say it, but maybe it's because of the time period. I mean, we're talking what, a year from 9/11, world in a different place.
Yeah.
Are you talking about why it didn't do well at the
Yeah,
box
why it
office?
may
I
not have
mean, that may be.
people were in a weird place, maybe. I don't know, but that could be as well. But I don't get it either. I watch this film and I see there is nothing wrong with this as far as Disney animated films go to say of why this was an actual flop. I really don't.
Yeah. I should have researched this myself, but yeah, it's a big question, especially now having watched it essentially one and a half times in the last week, with a quarter century in between almost, is a mystery, and that's why I hope somehow this gets its due.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the drawback. Because earlier I was saying how much I love that this was a passion project by these guys who have wanted to make this movie for damn near 2 decades. But then I hate that it flopped because then it's the studio going, see, you see what happens when we let you do something you want to do instead of the easy moneymaker, and that hurts my heart.
That's why when you said when the new regime came in, they were like, we don't want to do sequels. And now what is Disney and Pixar doing? It's all sequels. We've got Toy Story 5 for crying out loud, which that latest trailer, I'm actually kind of excited for it. It looks like they're going to tell an actual story that's sort of a callback to the first one. But just the idea when you're sitting there in 2010 watching the beautiful Toy Story 3 saying this is the perfect end to a perfect story, and like, no, it's going to go on for 2 more movies, guys. I'm like, what?
Well, yeah, because when Lasseter came in, it said not only was he told to cut sequels, he was told to cut TV shows too. They were cutting the budget around when he came in at 2002. So, you know, a number of things could just have affected why this rolled out. And we got a couple more comments from Billy Judd here about John Lasseter. He said he was going to direct Where the Wild Things Are, which that would have been interesting. And apparently they cut a super dark scene where the Horned King army kills the Vikings on screen by melting their bodies in the wild thing. Hell, I'd watch that. Shit. And they don't bother making their own version of Jay. Yeah, and we'll wrap it up here, but I think we'll just get everyone's final thoughts so you know what they're probably going to be. Just give your final thought with Treasure Planet overall. Joe, go ahead.
Um, I'm sorry I slept on this movie for like Mark said, a quarter cent, like Ian said, a quarter century basically. I wish I would have seen it back then. I probably would have loved it even then. I don't know. I don't know what 22-year-old me would have thought, but yeah, absolutely. I would show this to my nephew. I would show this to any of the kids in my life. I absolutely fell in love with this movie today.
Awesome. Awesome to hear. And Ian, your final thought.
I'm right there with you, and I think one of the nice things that's different today than was back then is this movie lives on. I mean, it's on Disney Plus, so it's along with like all of the rest of their catalog, right? So you can pull up any Disney movie and discover these, no pun intended, or I guess pun intended, buried treasures. It's definitely worth seeking out if you've just heard that it's this weird 2D, 3D hybrid that bombed in 2002. That is not a knock. It's not an indication that the movie is bad or that it had low quality. It's just something, it didn't catch the zeitgeist when it came out, and that's really unfortunate because I think this is an all-time classic Disney film.
And yet a year later, pirate movies became big because of Pirates of the Caribbean.
If this came out in 2004 or 2005, a bridge between the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
That very well could be. That had this come out 2 years later, it would have been a huge hit.
Oh, you're not kidding, because parents could find a pirate themed movie they could take their kids that isn't Pirates of the Caribbean if they think Pirates of the Caribbean is too dark for their kids.
Oh yeah.
Oh, look at Treasure Planet. Oh, this is deals with pirates. We'll take the kids to that. It probably was a year 2 years too early coming out, considering the explosion that became Pirates of the Caribbean. So that's a good point.
Those poor filmmakers. It takes 10 years to get this movie right, and then the Cosmos is like, well, if you'd only waited 12.
Yeah, and I've spoke my piece to it with as well, folks. Seek it out on Disney Plus. It's 90 minutes tops. It's a light, fun watch. It'll put you in a good mood. It really is. And even though it's PG because it has a few darker things, at this point, kids can handle it. The young kids will like Morph, and some of the older kids will enjoy seeing a character that kind of feels more like them realistically and not like something that someone thought a teenager would be. Because apparently there's a cutscene where he was supposed to be 15 in this, which seems a little young for him, but not by much, maybe by a couple of years, and maybe that's why they cut it. But still, I think there's a lot to enjoy with Treasure Planet. I'm glad we finally got to talk with it, and I hope this gets you to seek it out because we didn't fully spoil it, but you should just still experience because it's fun. It is a fun movie, and I agree with Ian. I think it could be a Disney classic if Disney gave it some due, and maybe we will see that next year. Maybe they'll revisit it. They like revisiting things at this point, so
yeah,
who knows? Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this discussion. Thank you, Billy Judd, for your comments. Always love commentary from our live listeners. And this is where I give my wonderful crew their license to shill. So, Joe, you got anything at all?
Well, right now, nothing specific. We did get the four. We did get commissioned to do 4 specials for Shudder on the last drive-in, and the first one's going to air on April 24th. It's going to be the Walpurgis Night special, and we have 2 movies. One more modern, one a little bit older. It's from the 80s. It's going to be a fun night. I haven't seen the more modern movie, so I'm going to save it for that night. That's it. Beyond that, not much to show right now.
Awesome. And Ian, sir, what do you got?
I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and also right here on YouTube. We do interviews and critics roundtables and all sorts of fun stuff. Tomorrow night, I'm going to finally, after all this time, reveal my top 10 movies of 2025. The Oscars are over. It'll be a little bit of Oscar chatter, but I haven't done a best of list since before the pandemic, so I'm going to right that wrong tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central. So if you want to join us on YouTube, please do that. And otherwise, I'm here on Sundays, sometimes Mondays, depending on how the winds blow, talking movies with Mark and Joe. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but unfortunately, I do it all the time. Damn it.
Oh, you did it again. Look at that.
Yep.
I love it. Yes. Next week, we will be talking about Atlantis, The Lost Empire, another what I consider lost Disney film because you see very little about it. But does it deserve to be hidden? We'll find out next week in our discussion. So tune in for that. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, I got a lot of content coming to you, folks. I got 13 interviews I did from the Midwest Weird Fest. I got at least 3 or 4 reviews dropping, and 2 other interviews I did last week that weren't at the fest. Plus, in about a week and a half will be the Review-a-Palooza, where I review all the films that I watched at the Midwest Weird Fest. Oh, we got all kinds of stuff coming, folks. And if I'm still alive at the end of the month, we will see. But thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, and we're going to have a special episode drop soon where we got a visit from Anastasia Elfman, and we talked about an older film, The Uninvited, which will be put up on the channel soon as I edit it together a bit. And yeah, so look for that. So a lot of great content, folks, but you can make sure you don't miss it by liking, subscribing, bells and whistles, and all of that here. We thank you so much. And now, until next time, we'll just say good night, everyone.